Um, If you do look at this Harvard Business Review article, it talks about the factors that are needed to seed kind of an economic boom to bring a new technology to an area. And best-in-class cities have 14 distinguishable attributes that cultivate this kind of opportunity and create ideas and innovation. And we believe that Austin, like we've proved before, can do it again and still has those factors. And we're looking to have that kind of explosion here for biotech in 2014, 2015. Now, of course, that to some of you that may seem like an aspirational goal, but I think it's inspirational as well. Oh, sorry, I'm improving. Our panel tonight is made up of 4 outstanding experts. Here would be the experts. And who can provide insight into the topic of how this is going to happen here. And not if it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen and how it is going to happen. And we're going to hear from 4 unique perspectives: a serial entrepreneur, research talent, and the UT Austin, as well as the Seton family of hospitals, including BRAC. So each of these experts is going to shed light on that. And the first question that I'm going to give to the panel is why, in your opinion, is biotechnology the next big thing in our community, and what is propelling us forward in this development? So I would first like to introduce Joe Scriba. He is a serial entrepreneur in Austin, and I called him today to confirm that that is how his name is pronounced. So I know that is right. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Anna. I started in life science technology in Austin in 1983 as an engineer in carbometics, that was making mechanical heart valves components, an OEM supplier, and have been involved in the life science community since then, working as an engineer in Sulzer Orthopedics, moving up into management, and then going out on my own in the 2000 era to start several companies. One of those being a spin out of University of Texas Technology Lab now, where we raised $38 million to develop a diagnostic test for HIV management, monitoring and management. Over that time, Austin's community has grown. Carbometics, to my understanding, was one of the first life science companies that came to this area. Came in the late 70s, came from San Diego area as a part of Intermedics Inc. Family of companies. They chose Austin because the Intermedics company was in Angleton, or was in Freeport, Texas at the time, and they wanted them to be in Texas. The person that led Carbometics at the time, Jack Bocros, said, well, if I have to be in Texas, I'm going to pick Austin. And for all of the reasons that Anna mentioned, the quality of life and the connection to the university. So over that time, the community has grown substantially. There's been a number of spin-outs of the Sulzer, the Intermedics family, Carbometics family, of companies that have occurred over the years. Those have had spin-outs as well. And there's a growing mass and a growing inertia here. I think the things that draw people here to Austin are the obvious things around the lifestyle, around the entrepreneurial spirit that's here, the university connection, and all of those seeds that go into it. But building a life science community, like building a technology community, is like building a shopping mall. You need the small stores, you need the big anchor stores, you need the medium-sized stores, and you need to have a general economy and all of the capabilities that are around that can support that area. I think we've done some of those things well, and there are many that we have to do as we move forward. But I'll let you all direct those comments here with your questions. pleased to be a part of this panel.
Thank you. I especially like the analogy to a mall. That's a particular, thank you very much. That's now my favorite. I would like to next introduce Jessica Hanover. Jessica is the former director of the ATI Bioscience Incubator and the newest member of one of Austin's outstanding life science companies, Rules-Based Medicine. So, do you want to also comment, Jessica, on why, in your opinion, bio is the next best thing?
Sure, thanks. And you pronounced my name correctly. You didn't even ask?
No, I'm making a lot of assumptions about you this evening.
You did a great job. As Anna mentioned, I was recently the first director of the bioscience program at the Austin Technology Incubator. ATI, Austin Technology Incubator, is a nonprofit business incubator. It's part of the University of Texas at Austin. And I think ATI is a great example of how far the bioscience community in Austin has come over the years, and also kind of gives some insight into where the life sciences community here is going to go and how it's going to move forward. I think Austin is particularly well known in its life sciences community for medical device companies, which Joe talked a little bit about. The diagnostics community here is also very strong. We've even recently seen growth in real drug therapy focused companies as well. But I think one thing that a lot of these companies have in common is that many of them are startup companies. They start really small. They were either spin-outs from a larger company that was here or was somewhere else, or they're just founded on technology, oftentimes technology that's coming out of the University of Texas at Austin. And ATI, the incubator, the bioscience program was founded about 2 years ago to support this growing life sciences community of startup companies. The way ATI works is essentially by working with entrepreneurs who are usually technology people. So scientists or doctors or engineers who may have a technology, they think it has some commercial applications, but they're a scientist or they're a physician. They don't really know how to put that commercialization plan on top of the technology. They don't know how to put that business wrapper around the technology and move it forward as a real company that can make a product and ultimately sell it into the marketplace one day. So programs like the bioscience program at the Austin Technology Incubator are there to support those entrepreneurs and to guide them and connect them with other people or other groups that have expertise in areas that the entrepreneur may not. And I think that really speaks to what I think is going to be necessary for Austin's bioscience community to move forward, and that is this great collaboration or communication between different groups like the private sector and the medical institutions and the university, because we need talent from all of these different groups or organizations to come together to bring something that started out as in a plate on the bench, growing in cells, to something that goes into clinical study that is run by a physician, to something that ultimately hits the market and is sold to patients and physicians. So one of the things that was a priority for us at ATI over the last 2 years in launching the program was to really build avenues of communication between these different groups in Austin. I think we have a lot of talent here and we have a lot of know-how, and it's just a matter of making sure everybody can really communicate well and can leverage each other's areas of expertise. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, I would like to introduce the provost at UT Austin, Steve Leslie. He is going to talk to us about UT's efforts that will solidify the opportunities for our region and propel this activity forward.
That's a good one.
Is that what you thought you were going to talk about?
That's a good thought. Yeah. Let me first say welcome to campus. We're delighted that you're all here. It's great to see such a robust crowd here to talk about such an important topic, a topic that's been important for a long time. It is important now, and it's going to be important to us as we move forward.
I see UT as a foundation for biotechnology in the Austin area and in Central Texas and for the state of Texas. And frankly, I see it as a centerpiece where we can build upon biotechnology that will frame opportunities that can be leading worldwide. I just don't see that we have limits for the future. Let me just say that I've had a strong interest in biotechnology for a long time. You know, my own personal background is in neuroscience, so I come from a science background and a long scientific career here. I was a dean for 8.5 years of our College of Pharmacy here, one of the most distinguished programs in the United States. We have our current dean, Lynn Chrisman, back there right now. And if you want to have detailed information about biotechnology interests and capabilities that are ongoing under Lynn's leadership, he would be a good one to ask. And Janet Walcall is sitting right next to him, to his immediate left. Janet was a leader in Big Pharma for many, many years, and Lynn recruited her here just a couple of years ago. And Austin is really fortunate to have Janet here. She will be a visionary in terms of the leadership of UT Austin as we engage in partnering with Austin and with Seton and with the private sector in areas of biotechnology. When I started as dean in 1998, I started going to the biotechnology cluster group meetings, and those were back what I viewed as some of the early days. And although there were things going on way before that, but that was foundational for me. And you know, we were somewhat involved as a university at that time, but that was a time when I think we really started digging into working with the Austin and Central Texas region to strengthen our ties and to understand that the role that we played in biotechnology was exceedingly important as we served the need of new startup companies and tried to help to recruit new biotech companies into the Austin region. Back in the early days, we had a meeting that we organized that brought some of the top leaders of pharmaceutical industry into Austin, and we met in the Lieutenant Governor's Chamber to talk about the environment in Austin and what we could do to enhance our appeal in the drug development area and in biotechnology development. And that actually was a very interesting meeting, and these were some of the top leaders in the pharmaceutical industry who came in to talk with us. And they told us that what we should do is look to focus on our specific strengths here, to build upon our strengths and things that we had the capacity to innovate and really be truly outstanding at it. Don't try to copy what other people are doing in other areas, but to really center on asking the question, why do we have talent here? And where do we have natural areas to build upon? And so we've tried to do that in strengthening our capacity to serve the region. Well, in the area of diagnostics, you know, we've since that time built a biomedical engineering program. We have a new department and a new building. We have worked to seriously strengthen nanoscience, and there's a big, strong nanoparticle group, both in the College of Natural Sciences and very strong in the College of Pharmacy. That's a significant one in the context of niche areas that have to do with formulations around difficult to design drugs, difficult to deliver new drug entities, those kinds of things. So I think our capacity in terms of drug delivery is quite powerful. So those are a couple of areas, and of course then most recently we've opened. We just had our opening. Maybe some of you were there at the opening of the Dell Pediatric Research Institute building that we have in partnership with Seton. Greg was absolutely there. Many from Seton were attending. It's a great partnership with Seton. And so we've opened that, and that has really created strong foundations and powerful connections to campus in critically important areas going forward in pediatric research having to do with areas like obesity and nutrition, the environmental consequences of things that children deal with, and childhood cancer. We just recruited into the College of Pharmacy John D. Giovanni, the immediate past director of the Science Park at Smithville Cancer Research Center, the MD Anderson Cancer Research Center out of Smithville. We just finished a joint recruitment, our first real in-the-trenches recruitment with Seton. Rick Fennell, who's a human geneticist that is jointly hired by Seton and UT Austin, human geneticists working in neuroscience areas, neural tube defects, neurodegenerative kinds of diseases, and he's going to be a great partner, I think, as we go forward. So those are just some examples. What we want to do is to continue this process of working to recruit deep talent and create circumstances where we create educational opportunities for students who will gain interest in partnerships with all of us in areas relating to biomedical research and biotechnology. To the extent that we can use the strength of our university to do that, I think the better off we're all going to be, and that is a primary focus for us. We are deeply interested in not only enhancing the quality of biomedical research and biomedical education on campus, but also in enhancing our outreach and connection to the private sector and expanding our connection and support structures and partnerships with Central Texas and Austin in particular in biotechnology. But let me just finish by saying that the power in what we do has been exponentially enhanced recently by our really strong partnerships with Seton and Greg and Charles Barnett and Tim George and everyone at Seton. It's just been fantastic. They are really into this and investing significantly in our future together. And I think that I can't tell you how fortunate I think we are to have the strong partnership at Seton. Real interest. And the good thing about that is that we're just starting. Seton, as you know, has, I'm not going to get into your territory here too much, but I have to just say that from the UT Austin's perspective, we're very excited about the formal relationship that Seton has framed with Southwestern. That's really powerful. That was all facilitated through strong partnership structure building with Seton and the University of Texas system with bringing Southwestern down here. And that's a good one too, because Southwestern is very interested in connecting with UT Austin as it builds its strong relationship through its residency programs and medical education programs with Seton. So while I think we've accomplished a lot, it's wonderful to see how full this room is, because I remember in 1998 when we used to sit around a table and there were maybe 10 or 12 people who are there now, and now we've got a few more than that. So good things are happening in Austin, and it's a great thing that it's happening in Austin. It's a great future for all of us, and we're delighted that UT Austin is deeply involved in this. We have strong commitments to it.
Thank you, Steve. I think because you are a very important person at UT, I will appeal for my free t-shirt to you. I see a lot of opportunity here.
I forgot to say that I will personally, because you've got 4 degrees, is that what
I do. And the improv degree, which wasn't from UT, but I do use it on campus.
Well, I will personally give you a t-shirt.
Thank you very much. Wow, I knew it was worthwhile coming here tonight. I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. This is really why I'm here. I have no idea what we're talking about. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, lastly, I would like to introduce Greg Hartman. He is the president of Breckenridge Hospital, and he can speak to the role, well, he can speak to whatever he wants, but he can speak to the role of our regional healthcare providers and the many contributions of Seton family of hospitals, as well as BRAC, in its ever-growing role in medical research.
Thank you, Anna. Steve already took all my best stuff, so I have to make up. I'm not improviser. Yeah, I'm not improviser. So. But actually, what I'd like to do is use the time to talk a little bit about Steve mentioned it, the relationship we have with UT Southwestern and the affiliation agreement we had. And before I go in that, because that really is the sort of new thing that's kind of recreating the landscape here, the relationship we have had with UT Austin is incredible. We've already got a lot of our doctors have faculty appointments with UT Austin. We've begun to do a lot of joint research projects. I know when we were developing UT Austin was working to develop the Pediatric Research Center. One of the amazing things, I'm relatively new to healthcare. I've only been at about 5.5 years, and I've worked in different industries before I joined Seton. But I found this fascinating. We built Dell Children's Medical Center, and the Dell Pediatric Research Facility was being built right afterwards. And Bob Bonar, who is the president of Dell Children's Medical Center, which is a Seton, member of the Seton County Hospitals, was working on the design. And one of the things they purposely did was not design a cafeteria in the Dell Pediatric Research Facility. And the reason is that Dell Children's Medical Center, we have a good cafeteria. All hospital food doesn't suck. There's actually really good. There's actually really good food at Dell Children's. And one of the things we did was we talked about not doing that because it's literally across the street, to get those folks to go in and cross the street and eat with physicians and eat with nurses and folks, and to get that kind of that exchange going, those relationships to build, because that really is where you do these amazing things. And so the partnership with UT Austin, as we do that, we've done some joint seminars and conferences, again, the joint faculty appointments, all that is really critical. The UT Southwestern agreement is really historic also, though. A lot of you probably know about UT Southwestern, but it's the medical school in Dallas. It's an amazing medical school. It consistently gets ranked in the top 20 medical schools in the nation by U.S. News and World Report. Has the most Nobel laureates of any medical school in America on its faculty. It's 7th in terms of federal research funding that it gets. It receives more federal research funding than any other medical school that's not directly connected to a flagship university, which it isn't right now in Dallas, which I think has a little bit to do with why they're so excited about having this relationship with UT Austin down here. Because you can just see the synergies if you begin to connect the work they're doing in Dallas and work already going here at UT Austin, what the potential is there. So it's really exciting. And from Seton's point of view, it's an incredible opportunity for us to be a part of this. And I'll talk a little bit about why we think that's important, but just the details, or just the facts about the agreement. We have in November, we signed a 15-year affiliation agreement with UT Southwestern, and then it has 2 5-year extensions. So really it's a minimum of a 25-year deal. The UT system and UT Southwestern and Seton are all co-signers on the agreement. And basically what it did is it transferred the education and academic responsibilities for the residency programs that were already here in Austin to UT Southwestern. And so they've taken over all the quality and planning for long-term residential programs. Seton, those residents and the faculty members that we've had, and we've had a role in academic medicine since about when UTMB first came in the early 2000s. Actually, we had a role. There's actually been residencies in Austin since the 1950s, but we've been involved in it since the early 2000s. All those faculty members and residents became employees of Seton. So we now had all those doctors, residents, and faculty members become our employees, and we've begun hiring more since then. We now have, about 2 years ago or so, we probably had maybe a dozen or more employees who are actually physicians working in our hospitals. We're now the largest physician practice in all of Central Texas. We have about 480 physicians, and most of those are residents, faculty members, or some other new physicians we've just begun hiring to begin to round out the various needs that we have. So the growth has been exponential by far. We have about 170, 180 residents, which we already had when the affiliation agreement was signed. Our expectation, Dr. Ken Shine, who's the Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs at the UT system, said he expects in the next 5 years, give or take, we'll probably double that. So we'll be well over 300, maybe 350 residents within 5 years. The number of programs probably varies. We're right at 9 programs right now. We're already talking about 3 that we're going to begin the application process here very soon. Physical medicine and rehab, plastic surgery, and emergency medicine. We're looking at applying for a neurosciences residency in the very near future. That'll take a little bit longer. So I think the growth curve here is pretty dramatic. One of the most important things about the agreement too is not only that we've got a great academic partner and we've got these connections with UT Austin that are developing, but the affiliation agreement also creates something called the Seton UT Southwestern Clinical Research Institute. And it's to be an entity that's being created. We're right now doing a national search for the executive director who we want to have as a physician and a scientist. And we've really got some wonderful candidates from across the country we're interviewing right now. And we're going to create an institute with physician-based scientists to do nothing but research. They'll probably will have some clinical practice that we want to do too, but a real focus on developing clinical research. And not only clinical research in some real focused areas, but also to begin to develop the process of developing the delivery of healthcare into the future. And as you can imagine, that's an area that a lot of folks are really beginning to look at now as we do this healthcare reform in Austin. Matter of fact, on this very stage last week, some of you may have been here, I came for part of it Thursday and Friday. The Macomb School did a two-day symposium on healthcare innovations. The business school did this symposium on healthcare innovations. And when you really start to hear about the rethinking of how the healthcare system looks, it's really pretty exciting because there does need to be, and I say this as a guy who works for a hospital, there needs to be radical change in terms of how we deliver healthcare in this country. And I think the healthcare legislation is just the first start. But until we begin to figure out how to make the system work better, how to have the different parts of the system talk to each other, and how we begin to have a business sense about how best to serve the client, the patient, the customer, whatever you want to call that person, we're never going to achieve what the dream is of healthcare reform. Because the healthcare reform isn't just insurance reform, it really needs to be about changing the whole structure of business. And so this Clinical Research Institute is going to have both clinical research, which will include bioscience, life sciences, all the kind of classic, typical research, again with partnership with UT Southwestern and UT Austin, but also beginning to look at the delivery of healthcare. So that's something really exciting that's just beginning, and it really has a lot of potential. Just quickly, one of the things that it's always important, I think, for us to tell from Seton is why we think this is worthwhile. And it's an expensive investment on our part. The state is not able to produce, isn't at this time producing much money for this. Most of the cost of this right now, Seton is paying for. We estimate over the next 4 to 5 years, probably about $100 million we'll invest to develop this whole program that we're transitioning to. But there's 3 reasons why, from an organization, a not-for-profit community service organization, we felt this was critical. One is the economic impact. And you've probably heard about this, and there's lots of different, judgments on this, but it's probably, if you look at some of the different studies they've done, we're talking about, if we develop what we're talking about, a relatively small but intense research institution here eventually, we're probably talking about $1.5 billion in new economic activity in Central Texas, probably $500,000 or more in new personal income, and some 12,000 to 14,000 new jobs. So in many ways, it redefines the economic landscape of Central Texas. So it's really, when we say the next big thing, when you talk about the economy, it is the next big thing. Matter of fact, Mayor Leckenwell talks about how the corner of 15th and Red River, which is right there between UT Austin and Brackridge Hospital, is the epicenter of the new economy. And I really think that's true. There's really some amazing stuff that's going to happen there. Second is better health care. When you have academic medicine, we've already seen in the last couple of years our ability to recruit new physicians to Austin. Dr. Tim George, who Steve talked about, Dr. Mark Lee, who's doing some incredible work, Dr. Carlos Brown, who's the guy who came to BRAC and got us to level 1. In case you didn't know, Austin was the largest city in America without a level 1 trauma center. Now we have 2, which we got both on the same day. Carlos Brown is a native of Austin who moved away. We were able to recruit back to come get us to that point. We can't get those kind of doctors here without this kind of academic affiliation, and so having that here is huge. And it's also going to allow us to extend the level of care that we can provide. Austin has a lot of great health care, but for a lot of high-end subspecialty work, we have had to send people to Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. For example, to get Trauma 1, we had to be able to begin doing reconnection of digits to reattach fingers, arms, those type of things in a trauma center. We weren't able to do that a year and a half ago. If you came into our emergency room, we packed you in ice and got you to Houston as quick as possible. We're now doing that at University Medical Center Brackridge, where we're beginning to expand those kind of subspecialties. The academic intensity is what brings those kind of doctors here. So we're going to have that level of world-class health care. And the final thing, this is really important to see too, is the care for vulnerable populations. You can't do it without academic medicine. The model in this country is residents and faculty provide care for the vulnerable populations in this country. As a matter of fact, a really amazing fact I learned in learning about this is about 20% of all hospitals in America, a little over 20% are teaching hospitals, but well over 70% of all charity care is provided in those hospitals. And it's just a model that works in this country. If you can extend residents can provide increased care for you to provide those types of services. And it also, we need more doctors in Central Texas. The national average for physicians is about 220 per 100,000. In Central Texas, we're at 155 physicians per 100,000. A significant shortage of physicians, and it's significantly shorter in specialties as well too, which is a huge piece of the type of care we have to provide, particularly those who are most vulnerable to sickness and often without resources. So without developing our own pipeline of physicians and new physicians, we're never going to be able to meet and fix that issue of supply and demand, to have to be able to meet those demands of care. So all of this come together, and you also think about this sort of critical mass we're getting in the entrepreneurs, the venture capitalists we have in Central Texas. It really does become an exciting, really exciting time, and I think a window of opportunity to achieve some pretty amazing things here in Central Texas. So we're glad to be a part of it, and honored to be up on this panel today.
Thank you. I know all of you will be running to make a reservation at the Dell's Children's Cafeteria, as we find out that all hospital food doesn't suck.
No reservations required.
Oh, nice. Great. Okay. So thank you so much to each of you for your comments. Now we're going to move to the Q&A session. This is when you, the audience, get to participate. I think you might have been handed out cards. Is that correct? Or you're welcome to approach the mic if you have a comment or a question for any of the panelists. Let me tell you that if you don't, I will continue to try and get free stuff. No, actually I have questions, but does anybody have a question that they'd like to pose? Yes, yes.
Hi, I'm Owen McNally. I'm a doctoral student here and an instructor. Around 10 years ago, it seems to me that there was a lot of excitement associated with developing technologies such as the Human Genome Project and gene sequencing, pharmacogenomics, bioinformatics, computational biology, overlapping fields. And I think there were raised expectations that the pharmaceutical industry was going to be leveraging these technologies to develop drugs. By 2010, we would be seeing the fruits, the massive capital investment that has been taking place. I'm just wondering whether you think that the reality has lived up to the expectations, say, from 10 years ago, and do we have the drugs hitting the market now that will justify retroactively all the money that's been spent, taxpayer money as well as private capital? Or maybe it's that we should be a little more patient and give the industry a little more time to leverage the basic research, and we should just not expect quick fixes and realize that biology is inherently complicated. The human genome is so complex that it exceeds the cognitive load of a lot of researchers to model all the components to it. But we should be seeing these new drugs show up anytime now, maybe the next 10 years?
Well, it's a very good question, and having been in science through that period and involved in some of the more molecular biological pieces of that, I think there was when the human genome was sequenced and the Science and Nature papers that came out at the same time, great anticipation and expectation that it would result very quickly in the discovery of new drugs, gene therapy, many new and novel approaches to healthcare. And it's been slow to come around. And I think it's just in the way I've always looked at this is that's the way science really is. I mean, I think that it's important for all of us to understand that scientific discovery takes a long, long time. And even though we have the human genome sequenced, it's like the map, but it's not it doesn't define necessarily the function. And there is really powerful work that's happened since that time, and I think we're seeing exponentially the important results come from all of that. But pharmaceutical industry has not really capitalized on that. Huge investments in it. But it's one of those things when you get the first big breakthrough, then off you go. It's the question of when that's going to happen. For us, I mean, I think we have some elements of that on campus. We have some serious strengths in genomics here. What's your degree? What are you pursuing?
It's in the information sciences area.
Information sciences, okay. who knows whether that's going to really hit big. It hasn't so far, but it doesn't mean that it won't. What's our capacity in terms of having the first big hit? Well, that would be guesswork. But I think what we can do is do what I was talking about before, and that's stay focused on creating just the deepest and most powerful basis of research in these areas and in many other areas, so that when it does hit, we'll be poised to really get engaged in it and make a difference.
Can I'm going to comment on it as well. What is your name, Owen? Oh. Owen, I will encourage you too that, I'm in a molecular diagnostics company and a therapeutics company, and certainly now the kind of the dream of personalized medicine, i.e. doing, expression profiling, finding markers, and then tailoring treatment for that is starting to happen. Pharma companies are very big. They take a long time to adapt. Also, there's a lot of stuff in the healthcare system with regard to how things are reimbursed that makes change very difficult. But we're seeing a lot of pharma companies moving to that now. They are doing a companion diagnostic for every drug because they are tailoring therapies, plus bioinformatics are huge. Everybody now wants their data analyzed because the Human Genome Project and because of arrays, there's so much data now. Nobody knows what to do with it. Nobody knows how to manage it. Nobody knows how to interpret it. So we are seeing a lot of that business. So I think definitely that is coming along, but you're dealing with a pharma industry that's dealing with the collapse of a model that it has banked on for many years, and now it's having to change that system, and it's very, very painful, but it is happening, so take heart.
Another thing, one of the things we've invested in at UT Austin in the context of having these vast arrays of data that really need powerful high computing capacity to analyze, is that we're poised for all of that with Ranger and TAC here at UT, which is amongst the most powerful supercomputing capabilities in the world.
Yes, we have a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Benedict Cullen, and I'm at the LBJ School of Public Affairs here at the university. And I guess my question is, what's the vision? The biotech is a word that covers an awful lot of different applications, and it seems that you as panelists have focused very much on biomedicine, and I did get a sense from you of where you thought Austin was going to how Austin was going to differentiate itself, and what some of the areas in which Austin as a technological community is strong. So diagnostics, nano, translational medicine, bioengineering, all of these are the things that I've heard tonight. Is there sort of a vision that's shared amongst the hospitals and the startups and the large firms and the university? And is there some thinking about how one differentiates oneself from what's happening in Houston or maybe at Texas and A&M? Is there a need to do any of that differentiation? And then lastly, because I'm a policy person, what do you need to get to that vision? What would you, if there were money out there, what would you want?
Hi. I guess what I would say to answer kind of maybe your first or second question is I'm not sure we need, as a city, to focus so much on differentiating ourselves. I think what we're doing already is really good. And I think, you heard a lot about what we have going on at UT Austin, and I think what is differentiating about Austin is that we have so much going on that we don't really need to zoom in on one particular thing. We have a great biomedical engineering department, we have a great college of pharmacy, our college of natural sciences is top ranked as well. And so I think, in my opinion, that we really need to focus on supporting all of those kinds of technologies and making sure anybody who has interest in commercializing some kind of technology in life sciences broadly is able to do that. And I think the diagnostic space, I've been involved in the biotechnology sector on the drug therapy side, I've been involved in the medical device sector, I've been involved now in the diagnostic sector, and I think there are striking similarities and striking needs that are the same across those sectors. So I don't think we need to really say we're just going to be diagnostics. I think we can support all of those industries by focusing on making sure our clinical community is talking to our scientific and our engineering communities, and that we have the commercialization experts involved as well. So I'm not sure we need to say Austin is going to be the best in one specific thing. I think we can do a lot of different things. And your last question was about policy, but what was the rest of it?
If there were all the money, what would we do?
Well, if I had all the money, I'm just for myself, for Austin, of course. I mean, if I had all the money, it would be a different answer. But for Austin, if Austin had all the money, I think, and one of the projects that I think we've all talked about a lot is bringing one critical resource here for companies, which is the wet lab space that startup companies in particular really need and rarely can afford to build out themselves. Wet lab space, we have a lot of it in the university, but we don't necessarily have a lot of it currently available for commercial use. And having a research park, you'll see it in San Jose, California, or Ann Arbor, Michigan. You see these research parks that have affordable wet lab facilities for startup companies that, maybe they were venture capital funded to the tune of $5 million. Those investors don't want to see that money go to building sinks and hoods. They want it to go to R&D in a lab that's already equipped. And so my vote would be, let's build a 150,000 square foot wet lab facility in the Austin city limits that early stage entrepreneurs can use a 250 square foot bench to tinker around on, or a larger company with 50 people could take over 5,000 square feet and really make something happen. That'd be my vote.
So Jessica, I want to just follow up on that very quickly, which is the wet lab space. That was something that you spent a lot of time championing when you were at the incubator. Where are we on putting that together?
That's a great question. Well, actually, I think we've talked about this topic a lot. ATI has been heavily involved in trying to identify wet lab space or find funding for wet lab space. I think ATI has made great progress within the university and also outside of the university in Austin. For example, ATI submitted a proposal to the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, part of the Department of Commerce, to fund a wet lab facility feasibility study, which would really be the first step in trying to build this 150,000 square foot building. That proposal is still going through the EDA, and hopefully we'll come up with the money that we need, both from EDA and the matching funds. But that would really allow us, and I know we've talked, Greg and I have talked about it also, just give Austin some great data on what are best practices for these kind of facilities, and how do you assess the population of companies in Austin to find out what their needs would be, and try to tailor a building that would work for those kind of companies. So in answer to your question, I think we made a lot of progress first in just making it understood that this is a resource startup companies and even not so startup companies need in the life sciences, and then we've also made progress with EDA and trying to get the study off the ground.
Okay. Steve, did you have something you wanted?
Just had a couple of points. One to pick up on the wet lab. And we've talked as we were trying to build out and finish the Dell Pediatric Research Institute with ATI, and I think that's just such an important element for the future biotechnology development, to have that kind of incubator wet lab space to take the next steps. But I want to come back to the point of a question that you asked right there. Yeah. About if you had money, where would you invest it? And I want to come back to a point that Greg made and just emphasize how significant it is that Seton Network has invested $100 million in Austin to create strength in biomedical research, in medical practice, medical education, and connections that will create real deep foundations. That is huge, particularly in these economic times, and will pay off in the future because it will help us in ways that we just could not do if Seton were not investing in this way to bring in the talent that Rick talked about in terms of the physicians who are practicing, but also engaging research in clinical sciences and connecting with Southwestern and with UT Austin. That's already happening. But this issue of where would you invest your money if you had vision, well, Seton is doing that in big ways. That will reap huge benefits for Austin and Central Texas as we go forward. So I think we should all give strong thanks and recognition for what Seton is doing for Austin.
One, thank you for that. It is, and I would say the one thing, it is more money. 100 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's a drop in the bucket to pull this off. You know, go back to the wet lab space, because we have been talking with Jessica about this, and we've been doing some work at Seton to try to figure out, you know, could we use some existing facility space we have now to build wet lab space? If we're going to really do this bench to bedside kind of translational medicine, we've got to have that. And we're pitifully short here, I think, in Central Texas. And one thing that really scares me, we talk about competitive differential. Some of you, I think, Sandy, you made it on a trip to Phoenix. Phoenix is talking about building 300,000 square feet, brand new wet lab space to build on what they already have. And so, I mean, they're going to have a huge, if they're pull that off, and I think they've actually got a lot of public funding in place to do that, they're going to have a huge competitive advantage over us. So this is something we've got to figure out. And to go back as a public policy person too, and that's where I came out of as well too, we've got to, this community needs to understand what it's going to take to invest in this. Because again, 100 million is a drop in the bucket. You know, one of the things I talk about all the time is our healthcare district, which is a bunch of great people. It's the lowest funded healthcare district in the state of Texas. And we talk a lot about being in a progressive town and these kind of things. We have a pitifully funded healthcare district, 6.5 cents per $100 valuation. Dallas is about 33 cents per $100 right now. Houston, I think, is 26. San Antonio is 24. I mean, these communities are investing, and that's why they have the kind of medical infrastructure they have. We don't have anything near like that. And you've got to, it is big investment, it is all the stuff we talk about here, but the healthcare district has to fund people who can go in and get care, and that care can be paid for. Because right now, a lot of the care we're providing at Seton and St. David's, which for a for-profit company does a wonderful job as well too. I'll never say anything bad about St. David's because they do step up to the bar. But we alone at Seton, our state community benefit, charity and community benefit report for 2008 was $400 million. That's just of care. The $300 million of that was charity care that we had to just give away. And again, that's our mission. That's what we're supposed to do. But unless we start to have real funding, we're not going to be able to do the infrastructure we need to have this. So there are huge public policy issues to this. It isn't just about attracting docs and those kind of things, which it is. But we've got to have a public policy discussion in this community. If we really want to be a world-class community in terms of healthcare and biotech, we've got to invest in it. And right now, we're not there at all. I think there's some interest in doing it. And the fact that all you folks are here tonight is probably a sign of that. But this community, yet up to this point, hasn't really shown the political will to do it yet. I think we can.
Thank you. John?
Yes, thank you. I'm John Fauner. I'm a PhD student in biomedical engineering. And as I'm looking to begin a career in research and development, I kind of sense a bit of tension between, I guess, maybe what I would call an old way of doing things, where you have large companies, be they pharma companies or other biomedical companies, who are also allocating a portion of their budget to do research and development in-house, versus what seems to be a trend of large companies now looking for small startups to take on that risk and then buying them out as the technology works, versus also professors who are taking a greater hand, not only in the fundamental research, but also more in the development process, trying to see that transition to market. So I'd just kind of like to hear your thoughts on where that landscape is going and where research and development will be taking place in the next 20, 50 years.
Well, I'll pass the microphone, but I think you framed it pretty well. So it's pretty much on target. When are you finishing up?
I've got about a year, maybe less.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Joe, do you want to comment on that?
From a medical device perspective, Austin is a good community to develop a business, develop new ideas out of. I think a lot of the factors that we know about Austin are there. I think one of the biggest problems we have right now is that of financing. There is no money. The venture capital model for funding companies is broken. It doesn't exist anymore. And the only way that you're going to get new ideas out of the university and into practice is through venture capital situations where the money is there. You're able to finance startup companies, and you're able to successfully launch those companies. In Austin, there's 3 companies that have venture money, that are venture funds in Austin. PTV Life Sciences closed a year or so ago, $190 million fund. Sante Ventures is about a $130 million fund. Emergent Technologies has a small $25 million fund. If the average medical device company with one product, one idea, because of the changes at the FDA, they're slowing down the process, making it more cumbersome, it's going to take $50 million to launch one product, one technology. We can't raise that money here. So we are a net importer of money into the local community in order to start those companies. The people that are bringing in the bulk of that money often have the ability to say, bring it to where we're at, not where you're at. So I think the dynamics in Austin, I think, are questionable when it comes to financing and the ability to really launch a company and keep it here and to grow it. I work for companies that have spun out, and there are now other companies that are going on as a part of that. But it needs that kind of inertia to happen. The other dynamic that's happening inside of venture capital companies right now is if they want to start a company, if they want to go invest in a company, they start it. They hire a management team, and they go out and find technology and then fund it. It's a management-centric investment model that's being used now. It's not a technology-centric model where the technology is invented and somehow it happens into a company. So there's a dynamic switch that's happening. And if you look at what happens at Sante, at PTV, and Emergent, they got money in management, and they're looking for ideas. And they're not necessarily looking at UT, they're looking across the country and across the world. And look at the companies that have brought in now. Biostable Engineering is a company that started out of Sante. They had management, they found technology. LDR Spine, same thing. They had money, they had management, they found technology. Spinal Restoration's the same thing. Emergent is built on that model. So you got to look at there's a huge change of how these people are funding companies now that the money and the investment is tighter as well. So there's a lot of dynamics that are happening that have changed over the last few years.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yes.
Hi, my name is Tarek. I'm a graduate student at UT in chemical engineering. And I was just curious if the city of Austin is doing any pushes to kind of reach a critical mass of the biotech industry here in Austin and like either allocate land or resources to try to recruit big pharma as well as small companies to try to kind of build up the private sector as well as the university sector.
I think recently, Hanger Orthopedics is a new company that's coming out of Maryland, it's coming to Austin. I think that is a success that it's not just the city of Austin, it's the Chamber of Commerce, it's business leaders that are coming together to do those kind of deals. So as far as, the city has initiatives, the other groups have initiatives as well, but it's more than just one group going off and doing it. At the same point, while Hanger is a great plus to the city, it's a 200-person company, so it's not the anchor store in the mall that I was talking about either. So all these things help. It's not just one thing that builds the community, and I don't want to diminish the importance and the success of bringing somebody like Hanger there, but there's a lot of other things that have to happen as well to grow a healthy ecosystem within the area.
Another comment? No? Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Stone. I'm at the LBJ School also. One of the unique features about Texas and perhaps Austin also is the Emerging Technology Fund, which is basically it's a state funding for bridging technologies. And I know it's also funded many biotech and pharmaceutical companies. My question is, first and foremost, how could that be improved and leveraged to improve biotechnology industry within Austin itself, and how can that be leveraged also to gain better venture capital investment? Because ETF is meant to get to the incubator stage and the startup, not necessarily to market. So you have that additional sort of gap or valley to get over. So how could Austin and Texas sort of build upon what's now a pretty good resource to build even more?
Well, I am, as I mentioned, I'm the general counsel for Myrna Therapeutics, and we just received the largest ETF grant ever given. So I have a lot of experience with the ETF. With regard to how Austin can leverage that and make sure that we get a multiplier effect out of that money, I think that it's resources that we need to be able to bring take a drug into the clinic, which would include CROs, it includes tox, PK/PD, it includes a lot of talent, which goes back to the critical mass issue of bringing talent and money here, because that $5 million is only going to go so far. But I have to say that that ETF money has done exactly what you've articulated, which it's created a bridge for us over a chasm, and venture capital has come in and said, great, we love what you're doing, and we're going to now pick up where that money left off, which is exactly what the ETF money is supposed to do. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it has been very useful to us. Anybody else have a question on that? Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Chintan Modi. I actually worked for a big pharma before coming to Austin for graduate school. And I spent about 5 years in big pharma. And now I'm doing research in biotechnology as well as related to genomics in my lab. Actually, we use one of the supercomputers for our research. So it's very helpful. Thank you for that. Well, my question is based on what I've heard from the panel today and to what Tarek already mentioned. And that, everyone has mentioned about how we need an incubator, we're trying to develop technology or companies from, university research and working with Breckenridge and so on and so forth. But has there any effort in order to bring a big pharma over here? Because, when you have biotech, small biotech, eventually they get bought out or they fail. That's how most of the models have been working now. For the last 10 years that I've been in science and biotech, that's how I've seen it. Usually you develop a technology, you sell it to big pharma, you close your shop, you make money, you go home, try a new one, or do some, sail around the world. My point is, has anyone thought about bringing, right now, yes, there's a recession, but eventually we will come out of the recession. And when that happens, one of the big pharmas, they're going to try to make a new research center. For example, I used to work for Merck, and Merck made a big research center a few years back in Boston. Well, I understand in Boston, great schools and great medical centers and so on and so forth. My question is, have Austin and UT in particular made that effort and thought about it? And second is the lack of medical school or teaching medical school here is somewhat of a inhibitory and bringing some big companies out here. Thank you. I'll take the answer now.
Yeah, we some years back, we actually, remember in my remarks I told you that a number of years ago we had some of the leading figures in big pharma that came down and we hosted them in the Lieutenant Governor's Chamber to talk about what we could do to get big pharma, what would appeal to big pharma to come to Austin. And at that time, I think the message that we, and I think is probably still the case, is that we're not a place that's got the foundations to support big pharma right now for all the reasons you alluded to. The Boston area and regions where you have these big companies developed around powerful medical schools and access to clinical research, but all that's emerging, and that was a time when the message from that group came that we should take a careful look at our strengths and build upon our strengths and not try to copy other regions and what they could do that we didn't have strengths in, including at that time big pharma. And I don't know whether we're better positioned now as we start thinking about coming out of an economic decline nationally, and now that we're building on these partnerships, it certainly does create better foundations. But I
I think in many ways, we're not in the best position right now to recruit a big pharma company here. And, I'm not sure their financial circumstances to consider that, but maybe, I don't know if Janet, who came from that background, has anything to add to that or not. But jump up to the microphone, Janet.
Well, actually, I do. Lynn was holding me down here. We were kind of chatting. It's a very interesting question. I don't see Big Pharma coming here as a big company. We see them coming here to collaborate with the university. And there are people here from our Office of Technology and Commercialization. They get calls every day. We have visitors from Merck, Novo Nordisk, every company you can name. And I think it's more important that we collaborate with them and build those relationships than actually have them housed here. Because I've worked in Big Pharma, and anybody else that's worked in Big Pharma, it's a slow-moving animal. And what you have in Austin is very nimble and entrepreneurial, and you don't want to kill that spirit. So I would say Big Pharma is not necessarily a well-suited match for Austin, but that doesn't mean we can't work with them and collaborate with them. That's exactly what we're doing.
In the context of having them partner with us in areas where we have our strengths.
And I would just add, I wouldn't consider small startup companies that get bought by Big Pharma, that's only a success. Those people like it here in Austin. They started their company in Austin here because they want to be in Austin. They're going to start another company. I don't think having Big Pharma move here should be our ultimate goal necessarily, and I don't think it's required. I think if you look at San Diego, you look at San Francisco, I mean, obviously those areas are, biotechnology has been there for years and years, and we have a lot of catch up to do, but they were founded in the entrepreneurial spirit and in the birth of new startups all the time, and I think there's no reason that Austin can't take advantage of that same kind of pathway.
Okay, thank you. We have two more people standing at the mic, and I'm going to cut it off there. So you've made it in, just under the wire. I can't see your name tag from here. My eyesight has started to go since I turned 20.
I'll tell you. My name is Chris Larson. I'm somewhat out of context in this group. I'm a computer geek.
You want free stuff?
What's that?
I want free stuff too.
Yeah, I want free stuff. No, actually, I have an interest in a lot of areas, two of which are community building and open source software. There are concepts in both of those that apply here. And one of the things that I find remarkable about Austin is the willingness of people to share their experiences and their assets and their time. So I guess my question is, given this spirit in Austin, are there initiatives encouraging companies to share resources? Are there data stores that are sort of collaborative on a commercial level or on a private level? And can you point me to software initiatives to try to develop these types of things? And before I walk away, I'd like to point out the guy standing behind me is a tremendous example of this community building and sharing of resources. So let him get a mic too.
I'm going to just very quickly, I'm not so sure on the source of the code, so to speak, but with regard to the CPRIT, there's another initiative that there were $3 billion in bonds passed a few years ago. You may have remembered the vote for cancer research prevention, and now CPRIT is now reviewing grants and commercialization grants. One of the big parts of that initiative is setting up centers of shared service. So, for example, in my area, one of the biggest problems we have to get research to move forward is access to specimens, to samples. It's very hard. People hoard their samples, they're like gold. But one of the CPRIT initiatives is to set up a kind of a system by which that would be much easier to do and compel people nicely to go ahead and share their samples so that research can happen. So there are actually incentives taking place to make those sorts of things happen. Clinical trial centers, again, to get kind of a best practices going. That's another initiative that CPRIT is funding.